Hello everyone and welcome to another weekly wisdom. Now, as an SEO, writing a brief for your copywriter can be quite challenging. You get so deep in the keywords and the tech that they're kind of left like...
with a shark, a squid, a pebble, a policeman, or none or all of the above. That's it! That is it! Write that!
It's sometimes hard to take your vision for dominating the SERPs and translating that into something that's actually readable. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to write a brief to avoid your copy sounding a bit like this. Okay, so in this video, we're going to go over number one, the SEO fundamentals that you're going to need in your brief. Now that's from things like topics to keywords and to entities. So should we care about things like keyword density, or is that a thing of the past? Number two, how to make sure your writer's style is the correct tone of voice for your brand. Now, anyone can write 500 words of copy about a topic, but is your brand serious and professional, or is it cool, irreverent and hip? Number three, how to structure your document so it's easily understood. Now, the way I interpret something may not be the way that you interpret something. So how do we write a brief for clarity? We need to understand what you should and should not write in that brief. Number four, should you nail every single detail or give the writer a little bit of creative license? And number five, how do you give feedback? So once you get the document back, how should you give feedback without sounding like a bit of a jerk off? And lastly, we need to work out where the writer's job starts and your job ends. What should we expect from the writer, and how do we build trust in our working relationship? Okay, let's get into it. So, SEO fundamentals. Nowadays, in a world where machine learning algorithms like RankBrain and BERT are in play, the world has really moved on from the same keyword smashing over and over again. Don't get me wrong, in the old days, I remember we used to brief content like...
No! No and then!
And then?
No and then!
And then?
No and then!
And then?
But now it's much more subtle, and it's built around topics and entities rather than that single keyword. Now, that being said, John Mueller literally came out this week and said that keywords are still very important.
There's probably always going to be a little bit of room for keyword research because you're providing those words to users. And even if search engines are trying to understand more than just those words, showing specific words to users can make it a little bit easier for them to understand what your pages are about.
So when it comes to your brief, definitely mention the overall keyword topic of the page, but after that, you should get a little bit smarter about some of the terms and things you're asking for. Now, there are a few tools that can help you get that brief to the writer. First one is the Semrush on-page SEO checker. That gets you a list of all the terms used in the top 10 results for a particular keyword. A relatively new tool called Surfer SEO actually uses entities on the page of all the results in the top 10 and compares it to your content to give you a brief. Or if you want to go semi-manual, you can get a corresponding Wikipedia page, copy all of the text from it and put it through Google's natural language processing. And what that's going to do is pull out all the entities inside that page, and that will help you structure a content brief. Remember that you should give structural guidance around things like titles, meta descriptions, H1s and other headings to allow the flow of work in the article itself. Next up, we need to get the tone right. Now, tone of voice is very important when writing. If the tone isn't right, then something just kind of feels off. This is one of the reasons why it's actually quite funny to hear babies swearing. It's the complete wrong tone of voice for a baby, and it's completely incongruent, and it creates this kind of weird tension and humor. So when writing your brief, open with your tone of voice guidelines so that the writer understands how the words should sound. For example, let's say I wanted to communicate that our agency, Type A Media, was a data-driven company. A professional tone of voice would be something like this. Results for your brand are not subjective, and neither is data. That's why Type A take a data-driven approach to your digital strategy. An irreverent or cheeky tone would be something a little bit like this. From fake news to straight up BS, the internet is full of it. That's why at Type A we cut the crap and use data to find out what matters most and get the job done. Now, ultimately, that's the exact same message, but the tone is completely different. Next up, what should you actually put inside the brief? When writing a brief, the temptation is to put as much on the page as possible, but I would ask you to hold your horses a little bit and not kill your writer with a brief that's actually bigger than the end piece of copy that you want to produce. You should structure your brief thusly. Keywords, topics, and heading structure should kick off. Then a PR style lead for the copywriter, and remember the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why should all be in there. What's the point of the article? What are you looking to achieve? Who is actually going to read it? And what reaction do you want to elicit, i.e. how do you want the reader to actually feel? You should also tell them, where's this thing going to live? Online, offline, in an app, a blog post, a product description? Tell them these things. But there's also a bunch of stuff you should not give a writer. Do not write vague statements about what you actually want them to do. For example, if you're talking about site speed, don't say, talk about how important it is for a site to load fast. Instead of that, say things like, talk about how significant it is for a site to load under 2 seconds as a benchmark of a fast website. Unless you've specified, do not expect the writer to do loads and loads of research on a topic. Tell them the exact points they want to cover. Now remember, the writer's usually not an industry expert, so if you want them to mention particular features or stress a particular point, absolutely tell them. Okay, next, how do we give feedback? In my mind, all feedback should follow the formula of SBI. We use this not only for managing people, but critiquing creative work. SBI stands for situation, behavior, and impact. For example, the situation, you need to describe the exact part of the text that you're not happy with. Do not vaguely talk about like overall flow or something like that. For example, do say line 10 or paragraph 1 you mentioned. For behavior, describe the exact sentence and why is there an issue with it. For example, bringing them together, on line 10, you said most of the internet is bots talking to bots. Next is impact. Describe why that's negative and how you would like it fixed. Again, the example, bringing them all together. On line 10, you said most of the internet are bots talking to bots. This is dystopian and nihilistic view of the internet, and we want the article to be uplifting and hopeful. This will need to be rewritten to reframe that algorithms make our lives better rather than dismissing robots as talking to one another. Lastly is where the writer's job starts and yours end. Now, unless it's grammatically incorrect or does not fit your brand tone, you should not do the following. Do not comment on the words they use to construct the sentences. Do not comment on the way that sentences are formed. Do not comment on the flow or direction of the writing. And do not comment on the story arc. Anything that is structural, English language dependent, that's the writer's job to get that right according to the brief and not your job. Remember, just as you're the SEO expert, they are the copy expert. So release the control and let them do their job. Well, that's everything for this week's Weekly Wisdom. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you think I've missed anything, I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Do you have a particular technique for briefing your writers? I'd love to hear about it. But until next time, we will see you later.